Well, we're in a series entitled Jesus Said, and this week we're going to start diving into some of the teachings of Jesus, but a specific kind of teaching. It's a teaching that is a story, and so as you have these first set of scriptures to read here, I just want to ask the question to get you started. How do you like to experience a story? Do you like to read it, maybe? Do you like to listen to the story being told? Maybe you like to watch it on like a movie, something like that, or a live drama. Or perhaps you like to immerse yourself into the story like in a video game. Well, talk about that with folks in your group. How do you best experience a story? How do you like to experience it? And when you're ready to dive into the rest of the scriptures, press play to continue. So the specific kind of story that we're talking about here is has got its own name. It's called a parable, and a parable is simply a story with a deeper meaning, spiritual meaning in this case, as Jesus is teaching us. And you have the parable that went with the first question from the first part of this video. And now you've got the explanation of the parable because Jesus chooses to explain to his closest followers what the parable means. What I'd like for you to do is to read the parable if you haven't already, and then read the explanation and just talk about what it means. I'd also like you to think about and talk about a little bit, why do you think Jesus told this parable to his followers in the first place? Why do you think they would need to know this information that he is sharing in this parable? Something to consider, just to dive a little bit deeper. And when you're ready to go on to the next section, press play to continue. Well, Jesus spoke in parables, in stories that have a deeper meaning. And sometimes the meaning of the parable is obvious, but a lot of times it's not. You almost have to have the explanation to sort of unlock the meaning of the parable. Otherwise, you can end up way off base. And what Jesus does is he tells the parable, but then he gives the meaning or the explanation not to everybody. He gives it to his disciples, those who are closest to him. And and so as you read this next section, what I'd like for you to do is to take a look at why Jesus doesn't share the answer, if you will, to everybody, but only shares it with a few, those closest to him. Read this section. It'll give you the answer to my question. Why did Jesus keep the meaning of his parables a secret from some people, but he shared the meaning with others? When you're done answering that, and you want to go on to the next section, press play to continue. Well, you might think that Jesus used parables because he was a great teacher, and he was, but that's not the real reason he was teaching using parables. You see, there were prophecies about the Messiah that said that when the Messiah came, he would speak in parables. Over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about how significant it is that Jesus claimed to be the Messiah, the Christ, and that he gave miraculous signs, especially the sign of Jonah, that as Jonah was 3 days in the belly of the fish, so the Son of Man would be in the belly of the earth. And all of that was to convince people that he is or was the Messiah. Well, Jesus taught in parables, and it was another way of him letting people know that he is the Messiah, because the Messiah would speak in parables. I guess my real question for you on this one is, do you think his followers caught on? It's kind of subtle that he's using parables to teach and using that as a way of claiming to be Messiah. Do you think that they caught it? Why or why not? Talk about that with your group, and when you're ready to go into the last section, press play to continue. Well, this last section is set up as kind of a you get to choose section. You see, Jesus taught a lot of things through parables, and what I have here are a list of almost all of his parables. We'll get into next week some of them that are called parables, but are a different category for what I'm teaching here. But we have a lot of his parables here, and I've got them listed off. A little summary of what the parable is, as well as the meaning of the parable. And I have the passages there so that you can look them up in your own Bible. What I want to encourage you to do is to pick a parable. Go down the list and find something that looks interesting to you. Maybe grab a whole group of them. I've got them grouped into sections, kind of going along with themes or general teachings. Sometimes he does a 1, 2, 3 punch with his parables. And so it can be, you can learn a lot by reading a whole group of the parables. Pick a parable or a group of parables, read them for yourself from your own Bible, and just take some time together to understand what is it that Jesus is teaching us through this parable or these parables. What does he want to communicate to us? And then go ahead and take the next step, and that is the step of application. How can this parable, the teaching that Jesus is giving here, how can it apply to us today? How can it apply to you today? After you're done doing that, take some time to pray for one another, to really go before God and take what we've been learning here from Jesus, from his parables, and ask God to help us to be the men and the women, the people of God that Jesus describes in the kingdom of God. Pray for me also that I will be a man who lives consistently as someone who is in the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, as described here by Jesus' teachings. Know that I'm praying for you as well. God bless.